Our planet harbors extraordinary secrets in its most isolated corners. Rising from the depths of Earth's vast oceans, which cover 71% of our world's surface, are approximately 2,000 inhabited islands and countless uninhabited ones. Among these scattered landmasses exist remarkable outliers that defy conventional understanding, places where evolution took unprecedented paths, ancient civilizations left bewildering artifacts, and extreme isolation created uniquely adapted ecosystems and societies. These aren't typical tourist destinations featured in travel magazines. They represent Earth's most profound mysteries, living laboratories that challenge our understanding of biological adaptation, human ingenuity, and geological processes. Some remain so remote that fewer people have walked their shores than have journeyed to space. Others harbor civilizations that collapsed under circumstances that continue to perplex researchers despite decades of scientific investigation. What makes an island truly mysterious? Is it extreme isolation, unique biodiversity, unexplained human artifacts, or perhaps a combination of factors that creates a sense of otherworldliness? This exploration takes us to 6 of Earth's most enigmatic islands, each representing a different category of mystery that scientists continue to study today. Imagine standing on land so isolated that your nearest neighbors are 1,500 miles away, or walking among plant species that exist nowhere else on Earth. Would your perspective on our world change permanently? What evolutionary secrets might these isolated ecosystems reveal about life's adaptability? Continue reading to discover how these islands challenge everything we thought we knew about nature's limits. Socotra, the alien landscape that time forgot. Approximately 240 miles off Yemen's coast in the Indian Ocean lies Socotra, often described by biologists as the most alien-looking place on Earth. This UNESCO World Heritage Site sits at the confluence of 3 oceanic zones, creating an environmental isolation chamber that has produced one of the highest rates of endemism on the planet. The scientific data is extraordinary. 37% of Socotra's 825 plant species, 90% of its reptile species, and 95% of its land snail species exist nowhere else on Earth. This level of endemism exceeds that of the Galapagos Islands, making Socotra arguably the most biodiverse isolated island relative to its size, approximately 1,400 square miles. What makes Socotra truly remarkable is the bizarre morphology of its endemic flora. The dragon's blood tree, Dracena cinnabari, serves as the island's iconic symbol, an umbrella-shaped evolutionary marvel that adapted to Socotra's harsh, dry conditions over millions of years. When damaged, this prehistoric-looking tree exudes dark red sap that local communities have used for medicine, dye, and varnish for centuries. Equally extraordinary is the bottle tree, Adenium socotranum, with its bulbous trunk designed to store water in an environment where rainfall is scarce and unpredictable. The desert rose, Adenium obesum, appears more sculpture than plant, with a swollen caudex and delicate pink flowers that seem incongruous against its harsh surroundings. Dr. Lisa Banfield, a botanist who has conducted extensive research on Socotra, describes it as an evolutionary time capsule, where plants developed adaptations that appear almost extraterrestrial compared to mainland flora. Recent DNA analysis suggests many of these species diverged from their mainland relatives between 7 to 10 million years ago, when Socotra separated from the Arabian Peninsula and Africa. The indigenous Socotra people, who number approximately 50,000, have developed a language and cultural tradition entirely their own. Socotri is a pre-Islamic South Arabian language that remains largely undocumented, containing unique terms for the island's distinctive flora and fauna. Local folklore describes the unusual plants not as botanical curiosities, but as manifestations of ancient spirits and mystical beings that protect the island. What evolutionary pressures drove these plants to develop such extraordinary adaptations? How has extreme isolation shaped both the ecosystem and human culture on Socotra? And perhaps most critically, what vulnerabilities do these irreplaceable species face in an era of climate change and increasing human contact? The scientific community has only begun to document these questions as researchers race against time to understand this biological treasure trove before outside influences forever alter it. Easter Island, Rapa Nui, the enigma written in stone. In the vast expanse of the South Pacific, Easter Island, Rapa Nui, stands as one of archaeology's most profound mysteries. This tiny landmass, just 63 square miles, sits 2,200 miles from Chile and 1,100 miles from the nearest inhabited island, making it one of the most geographically isolated inhabited places on Earth. What makes Easter Island extraordinary are the nearly 900 monolithic stone statues called moai that dominate its landscape. The statistical evidence of this achievement defies easy explanation. The average moai stands 13 feet tall and weighs approximately 14 tons, with the largest erected statue reaching 33 feet and weighing an estimated 82 tons. These figures are particularly astonishing considering the island's small population, estimated at its peak to be between 7,000 and 15,000 people. Archaeological studies confirm these statues were carved from volcanic tuff found in the Rano Varaka quarry and somehow transported up to 11 miles across the island to coastal platforms called ohu. Dr. Joanne Van Tilburg, who has conducted the most comprehensive mapping of the moai, notes, "The engineering knowledge required to move objects of this size with primitive technology represents one of the most remarkable achievements in human prehistory." For decades, archaeologists proposed competing theories about how these massive statues were transported. Recent experimental archaeology by teams led by Dr. Carl Lipo and Dr. Terry Hunt demonstrated that the moai could have been walked to their final positions using a rocking motion controlled by 3 teams of people using ropes, a method consistent with local oral traditions that describe the statues as having walked to their positions. The purpose behind this monumental effort remains contested. Evidence suggests the moai represented deified ancestors, with their backs positioned toward the ocean as symbolic protectors of the community. Archaeological excavations at moai sites have revealed human remains, suggesting ritual significance. Recent analysis of the moai's placement shows they are positioned near sources of fresh water, indicating they may have also served as territorial markers for critical resources. Most compelling is what happened to the civilization that created these monuments. Scientific evidence from paleoecological studies, including pollen analysis and soil samples, indicates systematic deforestation occurred across the island between 1200 CE and 1650 CE. This ecological collapse coincided with the end of moai construction and evidence of societal upheaval. The prevailing scientific understanding, supported by evidence from soil samples, radiocarbon dating, and cultural artifacts, suggests a complex interplay of factors led to the society's decline. Environmental degradation, resource depletion, internal conflict, and European contact bringing disease. By 1877, the population had dwindled to just 111 individuals. What psychological or spiritual imperatives drove a small population to devote such enormous resources to creating these stone sentinels? What technological knowledge has been lost that allowed them to quarry, transport, and erect these massive objects? And what warnings does the ecological collapse of Rapa Nui hold for our own civilization's relationship with limited resources? As climate scientists model future scenarios for our planet, Easter Island's story continues to serve as both enigma and cautionary tale. Borneo, the ancient rainforest that harbors undiscovered worlds. Borneo, the 3rd largest island in the world, presents a different category of mystery. A landmass so vast, 287,000 square miles, and biologically complex that scientific exploration has barely scratched its surface. Unlike our previous examples, Borneo's mystery lies not in its isolation but in its extraordinary biodiversity and ancient ecosystems that represent living records of Earth's evolutionary history. Botanical research confirms Borneo's rainforests originated approximately 130 million years ago, making them twice as old as the Amazon. This extended evolutionary timeline has created an unparalleled biodiversity hotspot. Scientific surveys document over 15,000 plant species, 420 bird species, 222 mammals, and over 440 freshwater fish species. Remarkably, Researchers continue to discover approximately 3 new species every month in Borneo's remote areas. Dr. Mary Leighton, a biologist specializing in Bornean ecosystems, notes, "What makes Borneo scientifically extraordinary is not just the number of species, but their endemic nature and specialized adaptations. Many represent evolutionary lineages that exist nowhere else on Earth." The island's human story adds another layer of mystery. Archaeological evidence from the Naya caves in Sarawak reveals human habitation dating back 40,000 years, with sophisticated cave paintings in burial sites demonstrating complex cultural practices. Today, over 200 distinct indigenous groups maintain traditional lifestyles and knowledge systems that have remained largely unchanged for millennia. The Penan people, for instance, practice one of the last remaining nomadic hunter-gatherer lifestyles, possessing botanical knowledge so sophisticated they can identify thousands of plants and their uses without a written language. Ethnobotanical research has documented their medicinal plant knowledge, identifying compounds now being studied for cancer treatment and antimicrobial properties. Perhaps most mysterious are Borneo's cave systems, particularly Sarawak Chamber, the largest known cave chamber in the world by area. At 1.66 million square feet, it's so vast that measurements must be taken using laser scanning technology. Within these cave systems, researchers have identified unique ecosystems existing in complete darkness, including species of shrimp, insects, and fungi that have evolved in isolation for millions of years. The limestone caves also contain puzzling archaeological evidence: prehistoric rock art depicting human figures, animals, and abstract symbols, some dating back 5,000 years. These images, painted using ochre pigments in locations extremely difficult to access, suggest ritual significance that remains poorly understood. What undiscovered species still hide in Borneo's vast interior? What ancient knowledge do indigenous communities possess that modern science has yet to document? And with Borneo losing approximately 1.3 million acres of forest annually to deforestation, how many biological and cultural treasures will disappear before we even know they exist? The scientific imperative to study this ancient ecosystem grows more urgent as development continues to transform the island. The ghost soldiers, historical enigmas of the Pacific Islands. Among the Pacific's scattered archipelagos lies one of the 20th century's most extraordinary human stories, a mystery not of ancient civilizations or biological evolution, but of psychological determination and historical circumstance. Following Japan's surrender in 1945, numerous Japanese soldiers remained hidden in the dense jungles of remote Pacific islands, unaware that World War II had ended. Historical records document at least 127 confirmed cases of these holdouts across various islands including Lubang, Guam, and Peleliu, with some maintaining their military posts for decades after peace was declared. Lieutenant Hiro Onoda represents the most thoroughly documented case, continuing his guerrilla campaign on Lubang Island in the Philippines until 1974, a full 29 years after the war ended. What makes these cases so compelling from both historical and psychological perspectives is the extraordinary adaptation these soldiers demonstrated. Military records and subsequent interviews with survivors reveal they created elaborate survival systems, constructing shelters from native materials, devising methods to maintain their weapons despite limited supplies, developing sustainable food sources, and maintaining military discipline despite complete isolation. Dr. Kazuhiko Takada, a historian specializing in Pacific War studies, explains, these cases represent a unique confluence of military indoctrination, psychological resilience, and environmental adaptation. The Japanese military code that considered surrender dishonorable created a mindset where continuing the mission, regardless of circumstances, became the only acceptable path. The psychological aspects have been studied extensively by researchers. Dr. Emily Harrison, a specialist in trauma and isolation psychology, notes, these cases demonstrate extreme cognitive dissonance maintenance. When presented with evidence of the war's end, leaflets dropped by planes, newspapers found in abandoned camps. Many holdouts interpreted this information as enemy propaganda, designed to trick them into surrendering. Local communities throughout the Pacific developed complex relationships with these hidden soldiers, In some locations, islanders left supplies to prevent raids on their villages. In others, elaborate mythologies developed around mysterious figures glimpsed moving through jungles at night, sometimes described as ghosts or spirits in local folklore. The most scientifically valuable documentation comes from the detailed diaries several holdouts maintained, providing unprecedented longitudinal data on the psychological effects of extreme isolation and cognitive dissonance. These documents reveal how reality and fantasy merged as isolation persisted, with many soldiers developing elaborate explanatory frameworks to maintain their worldview despite contradictory evidence. What psychological mechanisms allow humans to reject objective reality when it contradicts deeply held beliefs? How does extreme isolation alter perception and cognitive processing? And what does this historical phenomenon reveal about the power of cultural indoctrination? The ghost soldiers of the Pacific continue to provide valuable insights for researchers studying human adaptation to extreme circumstances. Tristan da Cunha, The Sociology of Extreme Isolation. In the South Atlantic Ocean lies what geographers officially recognize as the most remote inhabited island on Earth. Tristan da Cunha sits 1,511 miles from the nearest continental land in South Africa and 2,088 miles from South America. Even its closest neighboring island, St. Helena, lies 1,343 miles away, creating an isolation laboratory for both human adaptation and genetic research. The demographic data presents an extraordinary case study. Approximately 250 residents descended from just 15 original settlers, 8 men and 7 women, who arrived between 1,816 and 1,908. This limited genetic pool has created a unique population where everyone shares one of only 7 surnames: Glass, Green, Hagen, Lavarello, Mapedo, Rogers, and Swain. Dr. Nozamo, a geneticist who has studied the island's population, notes, Tristan da Cunha represents one of the most valuable genetic isolates for studying inherited traits. The community has elevated rates of specific conditions like asthma and glaucoma that have allowed researchers to identify genetic factors contributing to these diseases. The island's physical isolation is reinforced by its limited accessibility. With no airport, reaching Tristan requires a 6-day journey by boat from Cape Town, South Africa, and only during the approximately 60 days per year when notoriously rough seas permit safe passage. Geographical measurements confirm it is farther from a mainland airport than any other inhabited location on Earth. Sociologically, Tristan da Cunha has developed a unique economic and social structure born of necessity. The community functions as a collective farming society where potatoes, the main crop, are grown on common land locally called the patches. The island's primary income derives from its sustainable lobster fishery, which generates approximately $1.2 million annually for the community. Medical anthropologists have documented how isolation has forced adaptive healthcare solutions. With limited medical facilities and the nearest hospital thousands of miles away, the community has developed robust preventive care practices and traditional remedies. When serious medical emergencies occur, patients must be evacuated by fishing vessels, a journey that can take over a week depending on sea conditions. Perhaps most remarkable is the island's social organization. Crime is virtually non-existent, with no full-time police presence needed. Employment is shared among all able adults, and housing is allocated based on need rather than market forces. Dr. Peter Munch, who conducted the most comprehensive sociological study of the island in the 1960s, described it as perhaps the last functioning collective society, where cooperation rather than competition serves as the community's organizing principle. This self-sufficient community faced its greatest test in 1961 when a volcanic eruption forced complete evacuation to England. Despite being exposed to modern amenities and consumer culture, all but 6 islanders chose to return to their isolated home when it was declared safe 2 years later, a decision that has fascinated sociologists studying cultural attachment and identity. How does extreme geographic isolation shape human communities and genetic expression? What advantages might small cooperative societies have over larger competitive ones? And what insights might Tristan da Cunha's sustainable, resource-based economy offer to communities facing climate change and resource limitations? As our interconnected world faces environmental challenges, this island's adaptive strategies provide valuable research opportunities for sustainable living models. Bouvet Island, the ultimate wilderness at Earth's edge. Our exploration concludes with what may be the most isolated, inhospitable, and mysterious piece of land on our planet. Bouvet Island, Bouvetoya, a Norwegian dependency located in the Southern Ocean, represents the extreme edge of Earth's habitable environment and our planet's most remote landmass. Geographical measurements confirm its extraordinary isolation. Bouvet sits 1,404 miles from Antarctica and 1,600 miles from the African continent. The nearest human settlement is over 1,700 miles away. These statistics have earned it recognition from Guinness World Records as the most remote island on Earth. What makes Bouvet particularly intriguing to scientists is its volcanic origin and current geological activity. Satellite thermal imaging has detected ongoing heat signatures from the island's central caldera, indicating the volcano remains active beneath its glacial covering. Glaciologists estimate that ice covers 93% of the island's surface, with ice cliffs rising 15 to 30 meters vertically from the ocean on nearly all sides. The island's climate data is equally extreme. Average temperatures range between 28 degrees Celsius, 2 degrees Celsius, and 38 degrees Fahrenheit, 3 degrees Celsius year-round. Wind speeds regularly exceed 60 miles per hour, and the island experiences near constant precipitation, creating one of Earth's most consistently harsh environments. Dr. Julian Dowdeswell, a glaciologist who participated in a rare scientific expedition to Bouvet in 2012, notes, what makes Bouvet scientifically valuable is its pristine state. As one of the few land masses never colonized or significantly altered by humans, it provides a control environment for studying natural processes without anthropogenic interference. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of Bouvet's mystery is the extraordinary difficulty humans have experienced even locating it. Though discovered in 1739 by French naval officer Jean-Baptiste Charles Bouvet de Lozier, the island was so remote and frequently shrouded in fog that it was subsequently lost for almost a century. Multiple expeditions attempted to find it again without success, leading some to question its existence. It wasn't until 1808 that British whaler James Lindsay confirmed its location, though at a significant distance from Bouvet's original coordinates. This difficulty wasn't merely due to primitive navigational equipment. The island is remarkably small, just 19 square miles, and frequently shrouded in fog. Even modern ships equipped with GPS and radar have reported difficulty approaching Bouvet due to its hazardous surrounding waters and lack of safe anchorage. The island hosts large colonies of Antarctic fur seals and southern elephant seals, with a breeding population now estimated at 50,000 plus individuals. Ornithologists have documented several species of seabirds, including Antarctic petrels and macaroni penguins, that use the island as breeding grounds. Recent DNA analysis of these populations has helped researchers trace migration patterns and genetic flow between subantarctic islands. One of the strangest chapters in Bouvet's history occurred in 1964, when an abandoned lifeboat was discovered in a lagoon on the island, with no sign of its occupants or any indication of how it arrived there. This discovery, documented by a South African expedition, remains unexplained, particularly given the extreme difficulty of reaching the island's shores. What drives exploration to Earth's most inhospitable environments? What unknown species might exist in the waters surrounding this isolated volcanic island? And what can places like Bouvet Island teach us about the resilience of life at environmental extremes? As climate change alters Earth's ecosystems, these pristine natural laboratories become increasingly valuable for understanding environmental adaptation. Conclusion: islands as laboratories of nature and human experience. These mysterious islands represent more than geographical curiosities. They function as natural experiments that illuminate fundamental questions about evolution, human adaptation, and ecological processes. From Socotra's alien flora that demonstrate evolution's creative potential, to Easter Island's monoliths that challenge our understanding of prehistoric engineering, to Borneo's ancient rainforests that harbor undiscovered species, to the psychological determination of Pacific holdouts, to Tristan da Cunha's unique social structure, to Bouvet Island's pristine wilderness, each offers insights into nature's capacity for adaptation and the human experience across time. The scientific significance of these islands extends beyond their individual mysteries. Together, they demonstrate how isolation drives both biological and cultural divergence. They provide crucial data points for understanding how ecosystems respond to limited resources and environmental pressures. And they offer living laboratories for studying human ingenuity, societal organization, and psychological resilience. In an age of increasing homogenization, these islands stand as precious repositories of Earth's diversity and complexity. They challenge us to preserve not just unique species and ecosystems, but also the cultural heritage of communities shaped by their island environments. Each represents irreplaceable knowledge, whether medicinal plants in Borneo's rainforests, sustainable fishing practices in Tristan da Cunha, or the evolutionary adaptations of Socotra's strange flora. As climate change threatens coastal regions worldwide, and globalization reaches even the most remote communities, protecting these extraordinary places grows increasingly urgent. Their mysteries remind us that despite our technological advances and scientific knowledge, our world still contains wonders that defy easy explanation and demand continued exploration. What undiscovered mysteries might still hide on these remote islands, which will be lost before science can document them? And what responsibility do we bear to preserve these irreplaceable natural laboratories for future generations? As we navigate an increasingly interconnected world, these islands of mystery challenge us to balance exploration with preservation of Earth's most extraordinary places. Subscribe to continue our journey through the world's most compelling scientific enigmas.